The T-Rex thunders after you. You turn, point your M16 at the beast and fire. Reality snaps back hard and your bullets turn into tooth-tipped T-Rex killing arrows. Or not. The T-Rex smiles. You smile. The game just changed. Wait, what? This is TORG Eternity, and here is why you should have this on your shelf. Or perhaps you shouldn't. Hello and welcome to this, the first in a new series of reviews where I will be looking at a new RPG system. Now, I'm not sure it's going to be monthly as it takes a bit of time to read through a new RPG and to understand its mechanics and to actually play it, but I'm going to try. So, my name is Guy and we're looking at Ulisses Spiele's TORG Eternity Rules. TORG Eternity Rules. But first, disclaimer. This review was sponsored by the publishers of TORG Eternity. I was only introduced to the system because, well, basically they asked me to look at it. If they hadn't, I wouldn't have. And I'm really glad that I did, because I think it's a really wonderful system after reading through it. So, it is the perfect The Other role-playing game. Details on where to find it at the end. Now, back to the video. From the get-go, something to know is this game was designed by the same man who's done a ton of other RPGs, from like West End Star Wars stuff, to TSR stuff, to Wizards of the Coast stuff, to even Elder Scrolls Online. Well, so what? Why do we care? Well, it means he's been designing games for a long time and has been playing for a long time. So the mechanics included should, in theory, be well thought out. And also looking to kind of change the space in which they're being played in, right? So that means that this game has some serious thought put into it. Well, you can't go wrong there. But what is TORG Eternity? Okay, so short version. The Earth, current day, is invaded by a bunch of High Lords from different realities. It's like ancient Egypt, dinosaur land, Techno Demons, future religious nut jobs. You know, the usual kind of suspects that you'd expect to invade Earth. Well, why? Well, they're here because they're trying to suck as much power as possible from our Earth to ascend and become the TORG, the supreme being. Well, this was the first breakpoint for me. I hate pre-made settings, I really do. It kind of boils down to me having to remember more and read and remember and read and take someone else's ideas and run them, and well, it doesn't work so well for me. I mean, I'm a slow reader and I forget stuff. Anyway, the first couple chapters of the book are devoted to the lore. Now, because I was paid to, I read it. I'm very glad that I did, thank goodness. I was converted, I really was, almost instantaneously. The lore is really cool, and the options it opens up for you as the GM are really something special. Well, why? Well, the book sets up the status quo, that the world is invaded and that weird stuff is starting to happen, and that the invaders are drawn from, they're drawn from well-known tropes, so that makes it accessible almost instantly. The PCs are typically humans, like you and me, but their world is literally transforming around them. The rulers are each unique, and the goals of the PCs, the goals are pretty clear. This is a fight to save Earth, and it can be done. Does this mean every campaign in TORG, though, is going to be about saving the planet? Well, I don't think so, because the second campaign I planned out, yes, the second one, I mean, the book presents you with one, Save the Earth, but the second one was taking it to the High Lords. I mean, these wretched villains invade Earth. What? Screw that! We're invading back! I mean, that's what we do, isn't it? So the themes that are presented in each of the realms, and they're called cosms in the setting, are so varied that you can explore almost anything that you like. It's like savage lands, living in a police state, fighting Arthurian legends, Techno Demons. I'm just going to leave it there. So, if I have time at the end of the video, by the way, I'll go back and I'll talk about the different cosms, and they're a lot of fun. So, the thing is, though, that as I read more, I realized that the whole TRPG is about this setting. Ulisses Spiele is known for TRPGs that are made for the world that they're set in. That was another major no for me. I like rules to be open so that I can set anything I want to in there using that system. Now, I think that's the power of Dungeons and Dragons. Sure, some of the rules are linked to world-specific stuff, but in 20 years of running D&D games, I've not once had a problem making up my own worlds and my own settings. So that for me is a major strike against TORG. I want to be able to make and use the rules in other scenarios and settings that I invent. Well, then I read some more, and I'm a convert again. And ironically, it's because of the third thing that I instantly hate about the game, the meta content. Anyway, as you can expect, I was converted by that too, damn it. Anyway, so back to the notion that the rules are locked to the setting. So why? Now, and how? Because at first I was like, yeah, they're locked. I can unlock anything. I am the GM. Well, maybe not so much in this game. No, not to the level of integration that this game has. And that's actually a good thing. Something the designers focused on was working on how to handle people of different cosms, that's sort of realities or dimensions or Earth possibilities, how to handle them interacting with each other. They didn't just sort of go, yeah, no, it's fine, yeah, whatever. I mean, there's no effect. You go from one cosm to the other. They wanted there to be a reason why, when, say, medieval knights suddenly started roaming around Earth, a reason why Earth soldiers with drone fighters didn't instantly just annihilate them. Enter the beautiful mechanic of axioms and contradictions. Each cosm has a value for its 4 axioms: social, spirit, magic, and tech. That makes sense, right? So the cyber papacy, which is a bunch of Big Brother religious French nutjobs, okay, might have spirit and tech rather than, say, magic and social. The Earth itself has its own set of axioms too, and that's kind of where the PCs start. That's like the status quo, if you will. So when in another cosm, or when you attempt to do something above the axiom level of the cosm that you were in, you cause a contradiction. Basically, reality says, whoa, this was supposed to be reality X, and you're actually doing stuff from reality Y. Something has to change. And usually it's the smaller of the two that change. So that's usually the PC, the weapon, the effect. So suddenly the action that you're doing causes you to reconnect, to literally reform into something appropriate for that cosm. So, example, a fighter jet sails into the cosm of Mobius, a pharaoh from ancient Egypt, set in a pulp action adventure themed cosm reality, right? The jet causes all kinds of contradictions because the tech axiom of the Mobius cosm is much lower than the tech axiom that the fighter jet came from. In a contradiction, the jet fighter suddenly disconnects and is now a biplane made out of wooden paper. Instantly the wings are ripped off because the jet was doing Mach 1, and biplanes aren't really designed for that kind of speed. So furthermore, the pilot inside may very well transform into a World War I fighter ace, or not, if they can kind of resist the contradiction. Either way, chaos ensues. Now, the disconnect, it's not permanent for certain humans. Now that's our hero characters primarily, who can reconnect after some effort. It sounds insane, and I love it. The players will typically have agency where they're going and what they are taking with them. And this is a wonderful mechanic that makes sure if they don't plan for, or if they don't figure out how best to operate in the cosm they're heading into, they're going to discover that the cosms don't like contradictions. I love that word, contradictions. Anyway, so what this inspires in me as a GM is something like, say, Stargate or Quantum Leap. This is a game for the GM who gets bored with just one setting. The rules support it's a wonderful game influencing and inspiring mix. It really does. I really like it. Now, there are other more subtle rules about the effects of contradictions and the like, but we're not going there just yet. I mean, we probably won't even get there in this video. So I still have to address the metagame play, the big one for me. Now, by metagame play, I mean a device or a tool that is used by the player to influence the world of the character. Dice are a metagame tool that most TRPGs use. However, dice are used to determine random outcomes. The players don't have much choice on what dice they use. It just is. Major metagame tools are things where you as the player are thinking of the RPG as a tactical game rather than as a role-playing game. So miniatures on maps are a good sort of example of a tactical element. If you are a good tactician in real life, your PC is going to benefit unfairly over someone who has no clue about tactical combat. Tokens, trading cards, combined player pools are another example. When you have to think about the influence of a mechanic as a group, as a human, you're not playing your character, you're playing the game. You know, is this good or bad? Well, from a purist perspective, it might be bad. Some games have meta that works really well. Others have meta that's actually more interesting than the actual TRPG itself. So for other players, however, the meta isn't an issue and it's just another tool in the TRPG space to have fun with. I certainly know when a game has a meta tool, I usually end up gaming the meta tool choice of the players to make it a game within a game about a game. I get lost in the gaming. Anyway, back to TORG. Okay, so what was... So they sent me these poker chips, right? Very, very beautiful, get some focus going, poker chips, and a whole bunch of cards. The poker chips are really, really cool, and a whole bunch of cards. And I'm like, but why can't we just use a pen and paper, right? Okay, so could you do it? Could you do it? Could you do it? No, you couldn't. All right, you can't. So get over yourself if you don't like meta. Now, I've been playing recently another game that involved playing cards instead of dice. And I'm thoroughly loving that game, so why the hell not? Let's get away from pen and paper and go with chips and discs. Now, the PCs have a small chance to control the possible outcomes of the universe, literally called possibilities. I love the idea of manipulating the quantum fields of the universe to change the possibilities in the PC's favor. What's that saying? I've seen 14 million possibilities. Really? You had time to count them all? And you remembered where you were in the count? I'm just being facetious. So the idea of controlling the possible outcomes is super cool. And that's what these poker chips are. They're literally just a token, which is never going to focus, that allows the PCs to cash them in. And it's like an inspiration point or a hero point. So, you know, I mean, that could be put on paper. Sure, it could be. So, you know, I mean, you could do that if you really wanted to go back to pen and paper. But you can't do that with these. The drama deck. The drama deck. Now, these are awesome, awesome cards. I'll bring them up on screen. And it does exactly what it is. It causes a lot of drama. It causes all kinds of things to happen. Like who acts first in a round, or what skills are approved or not, and what advantages or disadvantages are in play for the combat. It kind of swings both ways as well. NPCs are equally affected, and sometimes it's in different ways from how the PCs are affected. It's chaos. It's absolute chaos. Now, the GM has planned out an encounter, and suddenly, drama! The NPCs are now at a disadvantage, or at advantage. I mean, that doesn't even begin to take into account the fact that the players have got cards in their own hands called Destiny! This is my destiny! And they can, you know, they get these at the beginning of each encounter, and it allows them to kind of play, and they can trade between each other. That's the meta coming in, right? So they can trade between each other. And I kind of look at it and I go, you know what? This is brilliant. This is brilliant. Now, here's the scenario. Try and keep up with me, right? It's a perilous situation, life and death. Hillary's PC hangs by a single threaded rope from a burning zeppelin. She's going to need a miracle to survive. Martin's PC is equally in trouble. The flames are growing at a speed that seems unnatural as a mummy is extending his hands using magic to grow them even larger. Hillary, Martin, what destiny cards do you want to use? What destiny cards do you want to use? Okay, and you may swap them at this time as well, by the way. But Martin, if you don't resolve the flames, you'll be consumed. Well, your character will be anyway. And Hillary, if you don't grab something else, the rope's going to snap and kill your character. So what do you do? And now as a GM, you set a cat amongst the pigeons. Does Hillary help save Martin's character? Does Martin sacrifice his character for Hillary's character? You could be truly mean and give them the 5 seconds to choose. The cards here now act as a potential lifesaver, but also as an additional choice component to solving their problem. And that's another component that we can use, by the way, is COSM cards. COSM cards. They're a mixed bag of all kinds of things. You gain power by destroying gear, and you gain some possibility chips. Yay! You might be able to use them to save you or not. So there's layers of options that the players have, and it gives the players these extraordinary outcomes which they might not be able to achieve normally with just dice. Whenever I, as the GM, can use my players, or can cause my players, I should say, to make a decision, it's a great moment. The more choices, the more decisions that your players have to make, and by make I mean choose right now, the more engaging the game. And this is why I sat back and went, okay, this meta makes sense, especially for the theme of the setting and the rules that support that setting. So that means TORG 3, me 0. Now, engaging setting, engaging rules, engaging meta. Well, what about the basics, the usual stuff? How does that play out? Well, here I win. Or rather lose, actually. Combat is exactly what you'd expect from a D20 based system. That's what it is, it's a D20 based system. You roll a die and add some modifiers. Except in TORG, it isn't. And that's because of the exploding mechanic that says if you roll a 10 or a 20, you re-roll and add the next result to your 10 or 20. If you hit another of those two, you roll again, and so on, allowing for a single roll to get as high as 200. Before eventually you just confiscate the die for being loaded. Technically, you could roll like 400. You really could, but it's unlikely. So back to the idea of these big rolls. Now, to handle the die rolling equally, anything from negative 40 to positive 40, the designers introduced the idea of a reference table on screen. Now, you compare what your roll total was to the chart, which has ranges across the spectrum. This then actually gives you the value of the number that is added to your actual character skill modifier to give you your total. It's also not one of those tables you can just learn, as the dynamic changes up and down the scale. I'm not a fan of adding in an extra layer of cross-referencing, especially during combat. We're always comparing, but now the player is rolling, adding, then looking at a chart, then adding, then comparing. It isn't game breaking, I will admit, but as the GM, I'm just going to cheat and just go, oh, I rolled a 20 and it's a +3. I'm not going to reference the table. I might. I probably will. I won't like it though. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so that's another component that I look for in rule sets, regardless of how much setting they come with or don't. How can I make it my own? Can I drop stuff? So the setting, the cards, the meta, those are specific. So I could add more to that, but I couldn't take anything away, I don't think. The reference tables, they make sense to the game designers and to the millions of people who play the game. I'm just bad at maths or lazy or both. You just can't take them out, you can't. So back to the basics. All right. Now they do have a cool system for remaining conscious called shock, which is pretty cool. So it is possible to knock out your target rather than to kill your target, which again is a really nice thing. Damage though, it's not straightforward. There is a difference calculation and a damage effect that correlates to that outcome. I do like the chapter entry on character death, however, and it reads, Character death. If a character dies, it's generally appropriate for her companions to say a few kind words, sing her praises, or tell a humorous story. No resurrection here. That's what I like. There's no resurrection. You say some words and move on, folks. You dead. Now, as vehicles feature in modern settings, I was also eager to look at the rules that they have for them. So, along with called shots, which are shots that you aim specifically for a specific part of the target, and that might be harder to hit, but you do more damage, that sort of thing. You can also do called shots to vehicles. You can target the engine and the tires and stuff like that. So there's lots of options in there. They do a very good job of that. So here's another example. Quinn rams his Jeep into a T-Rex. How awesome. He gets an outstanding result on his land vehicle roll against the Dinosaurs' average dodge roll. So he hits. Now, he causes the Jeep's toughness value plus 2 bonus dice in damage because of the outstanding part. The Jeep takes 20 points damage, equal to the Rex's toughness, but it has airbags, and so Quinn doesn't take 20 and he takes 16 damage. Now, depending on those bonus dice, the T-Rex might take 2 or 3 wounds and shock, which doesn't sound like much, but it's actually not bad because it can only sustain 4 wounds. I have to say that the reference tables would need to be printed out and included for all PCs and the GM to make the game move as quickly as possible. So I'm going to say in this instance, TORG 3, me 1. Okay, well, what's it like for players? They are going to absolutely love this game. The gear chapter is massive. I'm not sure I've seen a bigger one in a core rulebook. So included in this are things like a Boeing 747, a Steel at $5 million, or a Zeppelin, only 800,000, not as fast, or maybe a Faye Galleon, 10 million. Come on, it's totes worth it. It's got magic, right? You have luxury ocean liners, you've got Viking longships, you've got coal steamers. Because the game spans multiple cosms that represent the different possibilities of the universe, there are items from across the spectrum. And each, of course, has an axiom value, so that when the PCs forget their luxury yacht from the 21st century, and they sail into the Nile Delta from the 1920s, they have no reason to cry when their $1 million boat turns into a reed-based dhow because of a contradiction in reality. Damn, I love those things. Contradiction. Okay, character builds are what you'd expect, and there are many choices for your character. The game isn't shy about it. Races are limited, but it is thematically appropriate to the setting, so it doesn't kind of feel odd. I mean, you can play elves, dwarves, lizard men, and humans. You have some basic attributes, and then you've got a long list of skills to choose from. Your character gets perks, which are cosm linked and round out your character quite nicely. It's very neat and it's easily done. Magic is a thing, and in some cosms, a very powerful thing. In others, it might cause a contradiction and fail, or transform the wizard into a stage magician holding a white rabbit with no mention or memory of how to use actual magic. Now, magic being one of the axioms of the world and the cosms, it is tied to the cosms and must be used carefully. Now, spells are straightforward and require the caster to beat a difficulty number to be able to be cast. It's as simple as that. There's also divine magic in the form of faith, and it works in the same way. Beat difficulty number. As it's linked to the spirit axiom, it can cause problems in areas that don't have high spirit. PCs need to be careful. If they build a mage, that's great in some cosms, but in others, that mage is going to struggle. Finally, on the superpower front, they also have psionics linked to social. So working in the same way as magic and in the faith stuff, psionics seems like a really good fit given the diverse nature of this kind of game setting. Now, the fact that it all works seamlessly from the get-go, it does make it more appealing to me as the GM and as a player, actually. So that's TORG 4, me 1. Now, speaking of that, the entire book, and I've got that here, the entire book is really, 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 really well laid out. I didn't have any trouble navigating through it. Its chapters are clear and make sense. The entries are logically presented. PC character creation was simple, and it did not have me scratching my head, unlike some other TRPGs. The book quality is superb. It really is superb, and the imagery is evocative of the setting and the style of the game. You've been seeing some of it scrolling behind me. It's got two bookmarks, which are brilliant. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely brilliant. Really like that. So what I really like about the book and the TRPG is that it actually has a section dedicated to the GM, and details things like adventure options for the different cosms, gives advice on how to structure missions or adventures so they feel thematically appropriate to the cosm, and I'm so happy to say it includes an extensive section on adventure structure, such as acts and scenes, something that's very near and dear to my heart and of course this channel. Now, the fact that the book goes on to then talk about how NPCs can be used as motivators, exposition givers, mood setters, it really resonates with me as a complete TRPG package, helping new GMs learn how to basically bring about a better world for their PCs and reminding the older ones how we should be doing it. Rounding out the core rulebook are monster stats, clearly presented and covering all cosms. There's something in there for everyone. including how to make your own as well. And so that's also kind of what you'd expect from a core book. TORG 5, me 1. Now, they also sent me this, the Delphi missions, which is 12 adventures, sort of one-shots you drop in and play kind of book. It has the same wonderful bookmark ribbon as in the core book, which I love, and some really fun side missions. There's a dry sense of humour throughout most of the adventures, and each one plays out in a different cosm, which is nice. So all of those cosm cards, you're going to be able to get to use those. Now, the adventures are well laid out and well planned, and if this is the quality of all of their supplements, well, that's a great reason to get into this game if you like that kind of supplement for that kind of inspiration. I did like the fact that it added more to the monster database and it extended the universe a little bit more lore. What does this all boil down to then? TORG Eternity is a slightly complex, there are reference tables, but easily accessible rule system. Don't be put off by the metagame stuff. It makes it a real treat for you as a GM to have to adjust to the extra game twists, but I think that makes it a lot of fun to play, honestly, as the player and as the GM, as you're trying to juggle the plot and the triggers and the events and now this added component of destiny and possibilities. So yeah, I do think it's a fun space. Now, I've run this for a few of my friends, and no videos, unless you really want me to run a game, in which case link down below. Sometimes it's nice to play without rolling the camera, I must admit. So anyway, I believe the game's got legs, and by that I mean there's a huge scope for adventures and missions, and as long as you're not cosm hopping every 20 minutes, you won't get stuck with all of the axioms and what's a contradiction and that sort of thing. I mean, it's lovely. It really won't. If you're taking it at a decent pace, you really won't get turned around by all of those things. And you're going to love contradictions! You really are. Anyway, the biggest barrier to entry for me, which is the lore, is presented so well in the book that I truly cannot see how it could be a real barrier. The best way to get into the game, as far as I'm concerned, is to pick up a copy, get some Destiny decks, and start playing in a single cosm. Get used to the very straightforward mechanics, except for the tables. They are straightforward, especially if you've been playing D&D before. If you know the D20 system, then it's easy. And play for that a little bit, and then shift into one of the many new cosms, and see how it feels and how it affects the PCs and their gear and their playing style. And then after a while, shifting cosms becomes easy. The lore, as I said, I mean, it's presented across the book, and you can take as much or as little as you need to begin with and add to it slowly over time. Now, unlike a completely fantastical setting, all the realities in the cosm space, they're understandable because they come from modern day tropes. If you watch television, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. What I really love is they talk in the book about the cosms as being thematically different, mood different. So some are more mystery and discovery, others are pulpy action. Some are straight up Big Brother states with politics and intrigue around every corner. And then others are Techno Demons and Undead Vikings. And that's just hack and slash. I mean, whatever you and your players are looking for, whatever you feel like, this other role-playing game option, and that's an inside joke, by the way, buy the book to learn about what that joke is, or work it out for yourself. I have said it twice in this video. I'm going to say it again now. So this other role-playing game is a great option to add to your collection, I think. I'll be doing a few more videos for TORG Eternity, and I'd love to know what you are more interested in. So give me a heads up. Do you want more about the world setting and the lore? Perhaps it's about explaining the critical rules? Is it understanding how to make adventures in TORG? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll make them if you tell me what it is that you want me to make. Now, if you've played TORG, that's even better. Just let us know. What do you think? I mean, this whole channel is about sharing, right? So and learning and having fun. So down below. That's it from me for this TORG Eternity special. I'll be back next week with the next in the TORG series, decided by you down below. This video was sponsored by the makers of TORG and only made possible by my amazing Patreons who support this channel every month. Now, you as a viewer, you support this channel too and you make the sponsors want to come here. So thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, especially watching towards the end, all the way to the end, I should say. Now, if you want to support the channel even more, hit the like button or the subscribe button to show your love. Links down below to where you can find your copy of TORG, or hit up our website and follow the Amazon links. Until next time, no contradictions!